Can you name the vacation hotspot so popular that it drew nearly 9,000 visitors last year? That's right, 9 with a comma and 3 zeros. Well, I'm Scott Oddett for PJTV, and today we're going to take a road trip to visit your tax dollars in some of the least crowded tourist attractions across the country. With my guests, Drew Johnson and David Williams. They're from the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Well, David, how did you two come up with the idea to study these tax-sucking tourism boondoggles?
Well, Drew and I are big fans of National Lampoon's Vacation, the movie, but we're also taxpayer watchdogs. And we thought, you know, as summer gets ready, we thought about this in May, as summer gets ready, a lot of people are going to be driving across the country, seeing a lot of sites. I wonder which one of these sites and how many of them are taxpayer funded.
Well, Drew, how does a tourist attraction qualify to break into your sort of disaster vacation top 5?
What we wanted to do is look at a pretty wide example of these tourist traps, halls of fames, museums, things like that, and see which ones really did the best job of spending taxpayers' dollars poorly. So which were the sort of the best of the worst, and we did open records requests and looked at government budget documents to compile that list.
Well, since this is a road trip, let's take a look at some of the best and worst places, starting with the West Coast first. So we'll kick this off by visiting Nevada, the home of Siegfried and Roy, MGM Grand. And Drew, what else can we find there?
The Mob Museum, which is going to open next spring, $16.2 million of taxpayers' money has gone to fund this Mob Museum, which isn't even open yet. It's sort of a glorification of the mob, of the mafia, of mobsters. And one of the things that's in there that taxpayers have already paid for is the wall that during the St. Valentine's Day massacre, 7 men were killed against this wall. They were lined up and shot in the back of the head, and your tax dollars has gone to buy this bloodstained wall and put up in this museum.
Well, Vegas is for the family, as we know, and who doesn't want to visit a town, you know, where you're carrying a pocket full of money where they glorify organized crime? I think that all sounds wonderful. Now let's head over to Nebraska, home of the rough and tough University of Nebraska Cornhuskers, and a museum that celebrates what women do when they aren't, I suppose, husking. Drew, tell us about it.
Yeah, it's called the International Quilt Museum, and it's in Lincoln, Nebraska, as you mentioned. They've gotten over $1 million of state, federal, and local tax dollars so far. And this is the largest collection of quilts anywhere in the world, supposedly. And they also have exhibits. One of the exhibits, Indigo Gives America the Blues, and another one, Kit Quilts, More Than They Were Cut Out to Be. It's about $80,000 a year for this museum. And I think my great-great-great-grandmother would have loved this museum. Unfortunately, she died about 80 years ago, just like everybody else who really gives two shakes about quilts.
You know, you get the sense that there's a federal grant for every personal hobby out there. Well, let's move on. Let's go to the Buckeye State of Ohio. There are a lot of great places to visit there. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, SeaWorld. You can go boating on Lake Erie. But we're going to skip all that to check out the historic home of Ida McKinley. I'd have never guessed. What's there, Drew?
Well, you think about Canton, you think about the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but there's also the First Lady's National Historic Site. And it's actually in the house that William McKinley's wife was born in and raised in. And it's basically a museum and library devoted to the works and the lives of the First Ladies.
You know, when I think of First Ladies, I think of Martha Washington, Dolly Madison, Jackie Kennedy. David, why wouldn't a First Lady museum be in a hometown of a more historically memorable First Lady?
This museum and this building is a classic case of pork barrel spending. You have a very important member of Congress, well, he thought he was, Ralph Regula. He was an appropriator Republican, and sent millions of dollars back to the First Lady's Library. Why? It was in his district. Oh, surprise, surprise. And who's on the board of this museum? Let's see, his wife, his daughter, who I believe is the president of the museum. And here's a really kind of weird tidbit, is that John Murtha, a former member of Congress, his wife is also on the board, and she's from Pennsylvania. So there's really no need for it to be here other than Ralph Regula had this dream one night and said, you know, I want a legacy, and this is going to be a museum to First Ladies. I don't care about Martha. I don't care about any other First Ladies. This is where I want it because I want people to come to my hometown and have a good old time at the museum.
it actually costs taxpayers $120 per visitor to this museum. That's how much taxpayers subsidize every single visitor.
And there's finally one museum that I think I might actually want to visit. It's the Mark Twain Museum in Hartford, Connecticut. David, why does this museum make the list?
Well, this is a case of a museum of double and triple dipping when it comes to taxpayers, because they got money through 3 different programs: National Endowment for the Humanities, Department of Housing and Urban Development. Of course, we always think about Mark Twain and the Housing and Urban Development Agency, and then Save America's Treasure. So this really, and this was to a museum. This person was very, Mark Twain was very outspoken when it came to government excess. And I think Drew has some examples of some of the things that he said kind of mocking our government.
Right. One of his famous quotes is actually that he couldn't believe that the then Nebraska territorial legislature had spent $10,000 to build a fair, an agricultural fair, to show off $40 worth of pumpkins. And ultimately what happened to his house is taxpayers have had to pay $7.1 million in recent years to show off a house that he built for $40,000. So it's exactly what he was criticizing government for doing ended up sort of sadly and ironically happening to his own house.
Well, Drew and David, thank you. Folks, if you want to read their full report, you can go to protectingtaxpayers.org. That's protectingtaxpayers.org. And by the way, Mark Twain declared bankruptcy in 1894 and had to sell that house in Hartford. And if our government keeps spending money like this, well, you can write your own punchline. For PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.